The views expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of this station.
Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those in the community, as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Welcome to this week's episode of Insights. I'm your host, Jamie Sherrod, and today we're going to be discussing the right to carry. Here with me today, I have Representative Sue Aller. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for asking.
So you're one of 3 representatives that introduced this legislation. Tell us a little bit about it and why you think it's important.
Well, there are actually 4 representatives. Representative Michelle Hoyninga, Representative Hornberger, and Representative Tristan Cole, along with myself, who introduced a package of bills, House Bills 4416, 17, 18, and 19. The bill that I sponsored is 4418, and that involves the right to carry while you're out in nature, out in the woods. You're able to carry with having a coat on and not having a CPL. 4416 is the bill that everybody seems to be talking about quite a bit. That is the bill that would eliminate the need for an individual to obtain a CPL.
And this is whether they're out in nature hunting or whether they're out in the community?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Right now, the state of Michigan is an open carry state, so anyone can carry a pistol without having a CPL, without having any type of training. The individuals who do have a CPL in the state are able to carry a pistol and have it concealed. That's the basic premise there. The belief is that individuals should not have to pay $115 for the right to carry a pistol. There's a lot of concern that an individual carrying a gun could possibly be charged with a felony if they have it concealed and don't have a CPL. And there are a variety of situations where that could happen, where the individual was not doing anything wrong.
Okay, and I know you mentioned a $115 fee, which is a lot of money. What else goes along with that fee when it comes to obtaining your CPL?
All right, the process to obtain a CPL would involve one, obviously, having a pistol. In order to obtain the pistol, they have to go through an extensive background check. Then they have to apply through their county clerk and pay a $115 fee. Ultimately, they have to then sign up for a class, typically an 8-hour class. And during that class, they shoot off rounds. The state of Michigan requires 30 rounds. A lot of classes will require that 100 rounds are shot. So after taking that class and having passed the background check, then they're eligible for a CPL.
Okay.
So there's costs associated, obviously, with the application process and then the cost of the class. So those costs sometimes, prohibit individuals from even considering a CPL.
Wow. So for citizens who don't have their CPL and they're concealing their pistols, what are the consequences for them?
Those are felony charges. Potentially 5 years, I believe it's 5 years jail time, but definitely felony charges. And a lot of individuals could be in a situation where they're being charged with a felony. I guess a perfect example, and I've talked to numerous people about this, quite often the spouse may have a CPL, and that spouse leaves the pistol in the car to run into a store. The spouse without the CPL is sitting in that car, and just the fact that that spouse without the CPL is sitting in the vehicle and that gun is concealed could result in that individual having committed a felony. Now, I know that's a bit of a stretch, but that is a situation that could occur.
Okay. What are the risks, if any, that you think are possibly involved with this legislation?
Myself, I don't see any risks. I believe that individuals do have a right to carry. Our state constitution allows that. Everybody has a right to bear arms. I just don't think that there would be repercussions. The CPL licenses back in, I believe, 2004, 31,000 had been issued. And 2015-16, that number's up to probably about 171,000 CPL issues. So it's not eliminating anybody who may want to get a CPL. They can still go through the process. And quite a few of them probably will, because you're going to need to have that CPL in order to travel out of state. Right. So it's just for those individuals who want to be able to carry without having to go through the process of a CPL. They know they won't be charged with any felonies.
Okay. So some may argue that this could potentially be dangerous as far as, an increase in crime and an increase in escalating conflicts. What is your response to that?
Well, the state of Idaho, about a year ago, became a state that allowed carrying a pistol without a CPL. And a report just came out a couple days ago indicating that there has been no increase in crime. They haven't seen any issues with the fact that people are able to carry without a CPL.
What is the process of putting this legislation into action, and where are you with that now?
The bill was introduced back in March. It has just recently been passed, middle of June, in the House. It has now gone on to the Senate, and we're waiting for the Senate to take up a vote on that. Assuming it passes in the Senate, then it will go to Governor Snyder for his signature. So we're anticipating that it continues to move forward. I guess the only thing I'd like to add is that this package of bills does absolutely nothing to change the current law as it stands with regard to individuals needing to have background checks. That all remains the same. Individuals who right now are not legally able to carry weapons or pistols will not be able to under this new law.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for more discussion after the break here on Insights. Welcome back. Today I am here with Bob Skews, owner of Bob's Gun Shop. Thanks for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about how long have you been in business?
This is 54 years I've been in business, and I've supported all the youth groups around here and stuff in the shooting sports and in the rifle team. I've had a team for 50 years, and we shoot on the pistol team and trap, skeet every week.
Okay, great. What inspired you to open up a gun shop?
It was a hobby, and I really like guns, and I got in the hobby, and it just kept growing. I opened up closer to town, and I ran out of room, and I had to move out here and build a new place.
Yeah.
To accompany it.
Okay. What are some of the things and different types of guns that people can find here?
We have almost everything. We don't have too many of the AR type thing. I'm the wrong generation for them. But any hunting rifle or shooting pistol or rifle we have, yeah. We have about 1,000 guns.
1,000 guns?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
A lot of old ones too.
And that's the cool part of it, that you have the old school guns as well as the new school, right?
Yep.
Do you find that people come in here more so for the old school guns or the new guns, or maybe a little bit of both?
They do both. Towards hunting season, they come in for the more modern ones to hunt deer and stuff with. And like this time of the year, the old ones are more popular.
Okay, and speaking of hunting, do you see that more people come in here to buy guns for protection and safety or to go hunting?
At the first part of the season, like now, they'll come in for protection guns. Yeah, we have over 200 handguns, different type, in stock, and we can get them just about anything they want.
Okay, and then later in the year, they tend to come in for the hunting guns?
Yeah, more for the hunting guns. We sight them in and everything right here. In fact, you heard that shot. That's what he was sighting one in.
Okay. So have you heard of Representative Sue Aller, her along with other representatives, introduce a legislation on the right to carry?
Yes, I have, yeah.
What do you think about that?
I don't think it's that good. I think the person should get as much schooling as he can to be safety with the gun. You know, they need to learn how to use it and stuff like that. The more they get, the better they are, because we want them to be safe.
Yeah. What can you tell me about the process of someone who wants a gun and doesn't have one? What's the process that they have to go through in order to be able to get a gun?
They come in here, and we can do it all right here. They make out the forms, and we go to the FBI, BATF, and they tell us if they have no problem, or nobody at the name like has no problem. It only takes about 15 minutes to go through.
It's not that long. It's pretty
No,
quick.
It happens. It's fast, yeah.
Okay, and I understand you also do background checks as well?
That is the background.
That is the background check.
Yep, they're checking it too.
What happens when someone is trying to obtain a gun, but you see that they have gotten into some previous trouble before? What happens then?
Well, they'll be denied. You know, if they have to make the sheet out and stuff to answer all the questions, and if they're not right, they will be denied. And they check those when we send it to the BATF. We actually do it on computers, so it's a lot faster.
Okay, how would you describe that process? Would you describe it as difficult, easy?
No, it's just good. That's all I can say.
It's just good.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be easier if you just come in and sign your name and left, but that's not. It shouldn't be. You know, they should be checked out some. You know.
Okay, and I understand you were saying before that you think people should have to obtain their CPL because of that training that you feel is necessary. Tell us a little bit more about that.
If they're going to carry it, if they just want it for in their house, that's not necessary and they don't need it. But if they're going to carry it and want to go out and carry it around, stuff like that, I think they should be trained more and have to get CPL so that they're no more bottom and safer with them.
Okay, and right now, if a person wanted to obtain a gun, is there any classes or training that they have to go through in addition to the licensing process?
No, not to get a gun. Just if they wanted to get the CPL, then they have to take the classes.
So that would be the only means for them getting that proper training with handling the gun is through that CPL class?
Yeah, unless they hire somebody to give them lessons.
Which, it's a requirement for the CPL. It's not a requirement for them to obtain a gun to get that training. Do you think a lot of people are still going to get that training if they see that it's something that's pretty much unnecessary?
A lot of them do, because it makes it a lot easier to get a gun. If they get the CPL, they've already been all checked out. They can come in and give us that, and we don't even have to call it in. See, they've already been okayed.
Okay, so with the possible elimination of the CPL, do you think people will still go out and get that proper training?
I hope so, because I want people to be safe, you know.
Okay, so as far as the legislation, you think that they definitely need to get the CPL. It still needs to be put in place. I know others have also argued that eliminating this license will also maybe increase crime and escalate conflict. What are your thoughts on that?
It could, you know, well, it shouldn't increase crime, because even without that, they still can't get the gun, whether they take that class or not. It has to go through the BATF, and they have to be cleared there. And is the same thing they would go through, but they just wouldn't get the training to handle the gun as much as they would when they get the CPL.
Okay, and what does the CPL class and process, what does that consist of?
It's a day-long class that they take, and I think it's a little over 100 hours to get it. I'm not sure exactly. But they'll have to shoot so many shells, and it shows them how to handle it and stuff like that. If somebody comes in and wants to buy one and wants us to show them, we'll take and show them how to handle it and shoot it too. But we don't have the time to spend the whole day with every person that comes in to buy a gun.
Yeah. So obtaining the CPL, it's a bit pricey. You said it was a little bit over $100. Is there a way to get the same training that you would get from the CPL classes, but maybe for a little bit less?
If they would get the Sportsman's Club or one of the gun organizations to give classes on it for a large group like they do the hunter safety for the youth, they could do it for a lot less money. And they give them a slip too, and they would get a slip showing if they could get them to do that.
Okay, great. What does that class consist of?
They go to class for, I think it's 2 or 3 days they go for it, and they have, the workshop work that they go through that stuff, and at the end, the last day they'll go out and shoot different guns, and they show them how to shoot them.
Okay, so it's the same, if not close to the same training that they
Only
would
with
receive with the CPL, but for a lot less.
Yeah, only it's with a different type of gun. See,
Different type of gun too.
yeah, see, they're teaching the youth how to use guns, and in order to get a hunting license now, you have to have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they are getting taught how to properly handle a gun,
Properly handle it and shoot it, yeah.
which won't happen if we eliminate the CPL.
Right. Yeah, they don't have to go and shoot it or show anybody how they can shoot it and actually shoot it. They have to shoot about, I think about 40, 50 rounds in the CPL class.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bob. It was such a pleasure speaking with you.
It was a pleasure for me. Thank you.
And we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Insights. Today I have here with me Lieutenant LaBarge to talk to us about gun safety. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Jamie. This is a pleasure for us to be involved and to assist you and provide great information to our community about gun safety.
Yeah, of course. So I know guns, it can be a sensitive topic because some people use it for protection and hunting while others tend to use it for crime. So what does law enforcement do to make sure it's being used for protection and hunting versus that crime?
Well, I guess part of that would be, what we're doing right here. We'd like to, whatever we can do to educate the public and get information out, and this is a great avenue for us to get gun safety information out to the public. And one of the things we also do is obviously we have a permitting process here in the state of Michigan for licensing firearms. And for firearm and for handguns, there's a licensing for handguns in the state of Michigan, and one of the things we do is keep track of those firearms via that process.
Okay, and I know there's also background checks that get ran, and I know we were speaking about how for certain guns you do have to have that licensing.
For handgun permits, there is a handgun permit, so when you purchase a handgun from a licensed gun dealer here in the state of Michigan or from a private party, you're required to contact the sheriff's office and file a permit, and that permit gets filed with the state, and there's a record for that. There is no permitting for shotguns or rifles.
Okay, and how does that licensing help with law enforcement as far as knowing who have possession of these handguns?
Well, I guess one of the things is that, for one thing, if somebody their house is broken into and their firearms are stolen, it's a great database for us to be able to say, hey, here's the serial number. We can go back and enter those guns back into the system as being stolen, so they can be located at a future time. It's a way for I guess if there was a call for service at a house that there was an armed subject, then we could check our database, say, hey, there's a threatening situation going on there, and they could say, yes, there are several firearms in that particular residence.
Okay, and what are some gun safety tips that people should be aware of, whether they already possess a handgun or if they're thinking about getting one? What are some things that they should be aware of?
Well, obviously, securing their firearms. You know, obviously, owning a firearm is definitely our Second Amendment rights, but it bears a lot of responsibility too. For keeping those firearms, we need to do whatever we can. There's, I think an estimated number that gets thrown around a lot is 300 million firearms in this country. And that's a lot of firearms, and what that entails with a lot of firearms is firearm accidents. And safely securing your firearm is probably the most important thing we can do as owners of firearms. And if that's either securing them in your residence in the proper manner, or having a safe, having a closet that can be locked, if you have small children, keeping your firearms separated from ammunition. So there's a lot of steps that we can do as owners to protect your family, protect the other citizens, and talking to your kids about firearm safety is also very important.
Okay, and speaking of that, I know you have this here with you, which is the gun locks.
Right, these are through Project Child Safe. And actually, we get these free of cost from Project Child Safe, and what we do is we distribute these to the public. I think here in the last few months, we've probably distributed 200 or 300 of these gun locks through the sheriff's office, and trying to get the word out that they're free. Come pick them up, and they can be used for handguns, rifles, shotguns, and anybody can come to the sheriff's office and pick those up for free.
Yeah, so this is something that would be great to have in the home if you have children, and just great to have on you in general to prevent any accidents from occurring.
That's exactly right. We encourage everybody, either have a gun lock, secure your guns in a safe, and it's free. It costs nothing to come in, and we can get as many as we want through this Project Child Safe, and we encourage everybody to come get one.
Okay, and how would you use this to secure your handgun?
Well, I can demonstrate for you if you'd like.
Yeah,
I'm gonna safely. So first off, obviously, every time you handle a firearm, we should always assume that it's loaded. So I just unloaded my firearm. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure it's clear. There's no rounds in the chamber. And what we can do with this particular gun lock is all right. So on this particular one, all you do is you take it through, and you put it back into the locking mechanism. The gun cannot cycle. It can't. The receiver cannot close, and it cannot be loaded, obviously, through the magazine well.
Okay.
So obviously, that's an easy step towards securing that particular firearm.
Okay, and that's so cool, and it's so great being able to witness this actually being put on there, because I know when I first heard of the gun locks, I'm like, okay, how do you put it on there? And just seeing that, it definitely looks easier than it sounds. Right,
it is, and it's unfortunately it took a couple seconds on that one, but most of the time you get the hang of it, and it only takes a few seconds to put that on there. And that's a small price to pay, or a real easy way to secure your guns, especially if you have children in the house.
Okay, awesome. And these are free. People can just come here to the sheriff's office.
They come to the sheriff's office and say they want a free gun lock, and we'll hand them one.
That is awesome. Okay. So, I know we were speaking about gun safety tips. Where can people learn more about gun safety tips? Are there classes here in our area, or where would you suggest?
Well, people do call up here frequently asking about gun safety, getting their CPL license, and we always encourage them to go to any local gun shops here in the Alpena area. Another good source of information is the internet. Go on YouTube, and there's thousands of videos on gun safety, how to teach gun safety to your children, regular gun safety as far as handling of firearms and stuff like that, securing your firearms, different types of safe, different types of locking mechanism, different type of gun lock. So the internet is our friend, and there's a lot of information out there to gain from it.
Okay. And as an officer of the law, would you say here in our community, guns are being used more so for protection and hunting, or are they tending to be used for
definitely more for hunting? We're very fortunate. I tell you what, I thank God every day that we're up here in Alpena County, and up here, and we have a great community. As far as gun crimes up here in Alpena, it's very rare that we have gun crimes up here. And we're fortunate. There's a lot of cities in this state or around the country that they have a lot of gun violence and a lot of murders, a lot of aggravated assaults with firearms, and it's very rare up here in Alpena County. We should all be thankful that we're able to live in a community like this.
What are some of the things that people can do to limit the dangers of using a gun?
Well, we've talked a lot about securing their firearms in a safe manner, but obviously when they're using the firearms is using the proper safety techniques. You know, if you're out on a range, if you're out in your backyard, you're out hunting, to use the safest possible means to handle those firearms. We're not going to point those firearms at other people. We're always going to point them in a safe direction. We're going to not load the firearm until we're ready to use it, and obviously you're always going to, if there's a firearm around, we're always going to consider it loaded until you find out otherwise. And obviously one of the other biggest things, we're never going to mix alcohol, and if you're on prescription drugs or you're on drugs that will affect your faculties, we're never going to mix those things with firearms. I mean, obviously, I think we talked about earlier that 99% of the accidents can be prevented with just safe firearm handling.
And thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Jamie. Again, I want to thank you for bringing this important subject to light and educating the public and letting us have a voice in this matter as well.
Of course. And thank you for tuning in. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Insight.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.
The furniture and set design for this episode of Insights is provided by Young Appliance Art Van Furniture on US 23 South, Alpena.